meeting for the Board of Trustees for June 21st. Call this meeting to order. All trustees present, I declare that we can start our meeting with our Pledge of Allegiance to both the American and the Texas flags. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. First item, election of school board officers. I can take a nomination. Ms. Villalpando?
I would like to nominate President Clem Cantu for president.
I'll second.
Motion to nominate myself and seconded by Mr. Arredondo. Any other nominations? All in favor, please raise your hand. 6, 7. Thank you very much. Vice President.
Ms. Cantu,
Mr. Arredondo.
I would like to nominate Trustee Ann Halsey for Vice President.
I'll second.
Motion by, or nomination by Mr. Arredondo, second by Ms. Salmi, Dr. Salmi. Any other nominations? Call for the vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. 7-0. Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Cantu,
Nominations are now open for secretary.
Ms. Cantu,
Mr. Arredondo.
thank you. I'd like to nominate Myra Mejia for Secretary.
Any other nominations?
I'll second that.
I'll have a second from Ms. Halsey.
I would like to nominate Kathy Hansen for secretary.
Ms. Arredondo, Ms. Villalpando nominates Ms. Kathy Hansen.
You don't have to have a second.
You don't have to have a second, let's go. Okay, instead of this person against that person, can I just call on everyone and they tell me who they want? We'll start with that.
You just ask for, you don't vote against.
No,
We just vote for.
Just vote for.
just 4. Okay, all 4, raise your hand, all 4. Ms. Mejia? 4. For Hansen? 2. Wait, did you vote for yourself?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, so it was 4-2.
Oh, I thought you.
Okay. Thank you. You can stay there until it's over. You don't have
Pass it to her.
We'll now proceed to our public hearing to discuss the proposed tax rate for 2021. We have one person signed up to speak. Were you going to speak before, Dr. Barton?
I was going to walk us through the process of
Okay.
the public hearings.
Okay.
We do give notice, proper notice in the newspaper of the public hearing, so the public had an opportunity to come and comment this evening. We are proposing a tax rate that is identical to this year, knowing that in August, when our certified values are received, it will go down. But we can't project one that's under what it will actually be, so we're projecting the exact same, which is 9172.9172 cents in M&O, 0.2727 in debt service, and a total tax rate of $1.1899. And again, that will go down in August when we receive our certified values. And at this time, if there's anyone for public comment on the tax rate alone, now is that time.
I have one person signed up for the tax rate, and that is Mr. Lyon. Dan Lyon, would you please come up to the podium?
Thank you, folks. Good evening. I was appalled when I read in the San Marcos Daily Record that the SMCISD school board had proposed to keep the tax rate the same as last year, despite record rises in valuations. Let's examine how we got here. First of all, around the year 2013, there was a huge bond proposal, which included a high school stadium. We all knew that we couldn't afford it, but some of you who are on this board today voted to give it your endorsement. We went millions of dollars in debt for things which weren't absolute necessities. One thing which failed was a new administration building. In fact, this was the second time it failed. Just because the people wouldn't approve it, that didn't stop some employees from finding unhealthy levels of mold. Folks, you can find unhealthful levels of mold in almost any building in San Marcos. But you all voted to tear it down. Now we pay over $12,000 a month to rent a building which is in a less accessible part of town. The way tax is supposed to work is that as the valuations go up, the tax rate goes down. That mechanism is broken at the San Marcos Independent Consolidated.
Well, I think what may
Sorry, I lost my place. Why is it
Is she timing?
Why is it broken? The answer is simple. We are making the bankers and builders rich while bankrupting the people of the district with no appreciable academic benefit. If you go to schooldigger.com, we're down in the 35 percentile of school districts in Texas. That means 65% are better than us. And I doubt all those places have spent the kind of money we've spent. All I can say is Mad King Ludwig would have been proud of you all. Let's go to the 2019-2020 debt service. We spent $18,430,977 for service on the debt. That is $2,279 per pupil. That's about 33% of what we spend per pupil. In the 2021 budget, we spent $17,303,185. That is $2,096 per. Folks, it's obvious you've overspent. You don't know how to put together a budget, and the people of the San Marcos Consolidated Independent School District are the ones that pay and pay and pay and pay. And we will continue paying because you've even got other things planned. If I were as bad at math as y'all were, I would step down and hope nobody saw me walking away. But no, y'all are proud of it. Y'all sing your praises. What can I say? Hopefully the people of the school district will wise up and vote some of y'all out so we can save ourselves from bankruptcy. Thank you very much.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Cantu,
Yes.
could we have Dr. Barton please explain how the values, when we get the certification in August, how the tax rate will actually decrease at that point? Can you explain that process, please?
Yes, ma'am. It's a mismatch in two systems. In the old system, you were able to you knew your property values in advance. But now with the earlier budget year, that transition we did 3 or 4 years ago, we're making our budget in June instead of July. And in HB3, they consider the property values in telling us what our Tier 1 rate will be. We have to wait for the property values in the entire state to come in order for that to be calculated. Again, I emphasize, it will be less than this year because our property values will go up. We all know that because we've seen our notices from the appraisal district. However, they have not been certified, and so we can't calculate that yet. And the only error in this process is going to the public and projecting a rate that is less than what it actually is. So we're going to project one that is slightly more and give you very clear notice that it will go down.
Thank you.
Any other questions from any of the trustees? Okay. We're ready for the public hearing to discuss the proposed budget.
Yes, ma'am. This evening we will bring you our budget in 3 funds: the M&O, the food service, and the debt service fund. In the M&O fund, we project a revenue of $81,899,896. expenditures of $85,164,557, and a deficit of $3,264,661. In food service, we project a revenue of $4,859,075, and expenditures of $5,087,716. That's a deficit of $111,555. And in debt service, we project revenue of $22,128,718, expenditures of $18,519,165, and a total revenue of $3,609,553, and that'll be a surplus. But again, that's going to decrease when that tax rate is actually factored, because it's factored on what we actually need to pay our expenditures, which is 18 million, so that 22 will be much lower, but not until we set that tax rate.
Thank you.
And at this time, if there's public comment on the actual budget, it is appropriate.
Is there anyone interested in making comment on our budget? Okay. We'll go on to the public forum. I do have one person signed up for public forum. Rodrigo Amaya wants to address accountability and lack of leadership.
Good evening. I'm here today to relay a couple of concerns that were shared with me by members of the community here in San Marcos. One of them was the graduation ceremony. It was a mess. Good.
Go on.
I wasn't sure if you wanted me to hold on or.
No.
Anyways, it was a mess. A lot of parents came to me, shared with me their experiences about how bad it was, and they blame all of y'all. They wanted me to tell you that as soon as an election comes up, they're going to vote against your opponents because they're very unhappy about what happened. For them to see them elderly folks coming out to the graduation in that inclement weather, that other communities, other school districts around the area made, appropriate arrangements to make sure that they enjoyed that special evening for the students and the grandparents and all the family. But not here at San Marcos CISD. The other thing is the lack of academic benefit. Last time I was here, I cautioned y'all about renewing the superintendent's contract. Y'all didn't care. Y'all went ahead and renewed it. I'm happy he's got his PhD now. What's?
I was going to call a point of order. We heard your statements last time, and this is an employee of the district, and there is a grievance procedure that you need to follow if you're going to stand there and attack our superintendent.
Okay.
It's a point of order, and
Point of order.
I think we need to, he needs to refrain from saying anything. If you have a grievance, you need to file it with the school district.
I want everybody to hear it. I don't need to file a grievance. I've been through that process, and then I haven't gotten the necessary results that I seek.
But
That's
in
why
your-
I come up here. That's my right. And I'm not going to be silenced. So you can try all you want, but I'm not going to be silenced. Like I said, my comments on there are about lack of accountability and the leadership, and nobody's going to silence me. And if I come next time again and sign up, I will repeat it again. You're not going to silence me. Just want to make sure you know that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ready for our superintendent's report? Our Superintendent Cardona?
At this time, I'd like to call up Dr. Wallace, and joining us via Zoom, Dr. Tracy Benson. My superintendent report is the equity audit and a presentation. Reminder, this is the first step. At a later date, we'll have community meetings where the community can ask questions and provide input, but this is the very beginning of that process.
Good afternoon. I am humbled to be here. Dr. Cardona, thank you for inviting me to speak and to deliver the findings from our equity audit. My name is Dr. David J. Wallace. I am a son of an immigrant and grandson of Cropper, and so it is humbling to be in this space today to be able to provide the thoughts as well as recommendations from the equity audit. I am also joined by my colleague, Dr. Tracy Benson, who is joining us via Zoom. You can't see him right now, but when we get to Q&A, I'll minimize the PowerPoint and ensure that you can see his face. That being said, I will jump in. I am planning to speak for about 35 minutes, and so I'll spend 10 minutes going over the systems and structure audit, and then we'll pause for 5 to 7 minutes for Q&A, and then I'll do the curriculum and instruction audit, and we'll pause for another 5 to 7 minutes for Q&A. Sounds good? Okay, so a brief overview. When we think about the equity audit, we wanted to look at the high-level trends that are occurring in the school district, particularly as it relates to equity. We looked at 5 schools: Hernandez, Crockett, Mendez, Miller, and San Marcos. And then we also included Goodnight Middle for discipline data only. Some areas of study included attendance, discipline, dropout, and the racial climate survey, which was administered to students. Some major findings. Chronic absences have been on the decline over the past 3 years. However, not all students are benefiting from this trend. I'll talk about this more in a minute, but I just want to lift that up, that is a trend that we're seeing for the school district, that chronic absences are declining. When it comes to discipline, Miller Middle School was an outlier when it comes to the proportion of discipline compared to other enrolled students. In terms of dropout, unfortunately, dropouts are on an upward trend and should be addressed. And then racial climate survey, there are incidents of racism occurring in the school district and they are not being reported. I'll share some recommendations after we take a deep dive into data. So in looking at attendance, for the overview, our study focused on chronic absenteeism, and that was defined by either 18 or more days absent or 201 or more periods, so looking at the middle school and high school. The years included the years 2017 all the way up to 2020, and I've shared this before, but those are the schools that are included. We did not include Mendez Elementary into this data set because of data issues. It was really hard to digest and analyze the data as it was presented, so we left it out of the presentation. I want to narrate a few trends for you. If you are in the audience, it's probably incredibly difficult to see these charts, so I will narrate them for you. When we think about the chronic absenteeism, it has dropped over the last 3 years, excuse me. Hispanic students make up the largest percentage of enrolled and chronic absences. However, one thing that we notice is that our Hispanic students are not benefiting from the drop in absences like other demographics. Sorry. And as you'll see, there are, if you look at this bottom, well, you all can't see it, so I'm not going to go too much into it. But you'll notice for the folks at on the board, you have the data. You'll see that the Hispanic students are continuously making up over 50% of the enrollment, and those are also the students that are the most absent from school. I want you to pay close attention to the absences as well as when I talk about the disciplines. So we look at incidents of removals, that's including ISS, OSS, and DAEP over the last 3 years. And we looked at race, gender, as well as grade level to determine discipline description, the discipline description. We included Goodnight Middle School because the data was presented to us and we thought that that would help situate the findings. The middle school makes up the largest portion of discipline incidents compared to other portions of enrollment. There are a large number and concerning number of incidents between grades 5 and 6 and between grades 8 and 9. When we think about the fact that the middle school only enrolls 33% of the student body, but over 50% of the incidents are coming from the middle school, that is concerning. If you also look at what grades has the most incidents, it is ranging between grades 6 and 9, with 9th grade being the outlier. And so when we think about that age range, what is happening between grades 5 and 9, that is a concern for us because it is very different from the rest of the enrollment. When we look at gender, race and gender, there's a trend of males overrepresented compared to the proportion of enrollment. From the data that we got, there's about 50-50 student enrollment based on gender, with male identifying male and identifying as female. However, males make up 64% of the incidents that are occurring. And when you look at the data source by race, there is an overrepresentation of males, particularly Hispanic males, in the discipline infractions. Not only are the males overrepresented, but also our females are overrepresented from the Hispanic background. And so that is also very concerning, and you'll see that notated on the second chart to the right. And I'm slowing down intentionally because I see folks are eagerly looking at the data tables. For dropouts, we look at San Marcos High School, and we looked at the past years from 2017 until 2020. And a few things of concern are coming out as it relates to dropout, particularly with gender. We have seen a stark spike in female dropouts from the school year 2017 up until now. The female dropouts is increasing at an alarming rate. You'll see notated by the blue line. And the male dropouts are continuing to increase, even though they are already too high. And so when we think about the connection between what's happening in terms of discipline at the middle school, and then kids are getting to high school, they are less likely to sustain in high school. And so we need to target the middle school and figure out what's going on there. And then I also want to note that there was a 3-year increase in male dropouts. And so we need to wrap our arms around our boys in high school to try to retain them into the classroom. If we explore this data a little further, the Hispanic female group is the largest group of increase over the past 3 years. If you notice the yellow line, for the folks in the audience, you squint a little bit, you should see the yellow line, which is the second one. You'll see that we started off in 2017 with about 10 dropouts, and that elevated all the way up to 35 for the past school year. That is also very concerning. And then there are also consistent increases with our white female dropouts as well. One thing to note, we did see a slight decline in dropouts for our Hispanic males, although it is still too high. In regards to the racial climate survey, we administered a survey and 1,181 students responded to the survey. 82 staff members also responded to the survey. I do want to note that Miller Middle School had the highest response rate at 57% of the student population. I'll break this down for you. Of the respondents who indicated that they witnessed racism at their school, only 24% indicated that they have reported acts of racism. Again, folks are witnessing racism at school and they are not reporting it. Only 24% are reporting incidents of racism. Factors such as having trusted adults, knowing how to report issues, and comfort level with reporting issues are impacting the reporting rates. If we look at the data, there's still a major piece missing from San Marcos CISD reporting process, and that is probably worth discussing further on how do we actually train our students how to report issues of racism that they're witnessing. We also saw incident reporting. We see that there are more incidents happening, but they might be underreported. And so, for example, I have heard a student use a racial put down or name. A starking 84% of respondents said yes. I have heard an adult use a racial put down or name. We have 27%, which is still too high. No adults, let alone kids, should be using any racial put downs. And to see that data reflected in the survey is also concerning. I want to walk through some recommendations. When it comes to attendance, we need to investigate the intersection between suspension and chronic absenteeism. As I shared, if there's so many kids getting suspended in middle school, how can we expect for the kids to be motivated or invested when they get to high school if they've actually sat out of middle school for a good chunk of the school year? And so that's something that we need to investigate more closely. When it comes to discipline, we need to streamline the discipline policies and practices for the district to reduce student suspensions. The goal should be to keep the kids in the classroom, not put them out. When we think about dropouts, we need to develop more intensive middle school strategies as well as ninth grade safeguards to keep our kids in school. And in terms of racial climate, our recommendation is to enroll every school leader as well as designated district leaders into an anti-racist leadership institute to increase not only their racial literacy, confidence, but also ability to successfully navigate and combat racism. And I think lastly, we need to reduce supplemental supports and refocus on core instruction. We spoke with school leaders, and that was one of their core challenges that they've named, is that we've sort of spread ourselves too thin as it relates to supplemental support so that kids can see success, but we need to bring it back to the old days and focus on core instruction, but then also ensure that we are motivating kids to stay in the classroom and keep them invested. I will pause there and set my timer for 5 minutes so that I can keep track of myself. What questions do you have for the structure and system audit?
Ms. Halsey?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Wallace. This is very informative, and I think the recommendations are incredibly helpful. I had one follow-up question for you, and then one for Dr. Cardona. My question for you is, do we have the racial climate survey responses by campuses, and was there, and if so, is there any indication, anything that any notable finding that you found about from that that would be make one campus or another higher on the priority list, or do you think it's pervasive?
Great question. Dr. Benson, you might want to tap in here. The question is, are there any outliers as it relates to schools or the data and recommendations that we presented? Is this just for the good of the district?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, hello. I'm glad to join you all virtually. Yeah, the climate survey we sent out was about 1,200 respondents responded to the survey, and considering that 57% came from, the respondents came from Miller Middle School, they do stand out as an outlier. I do recommend re-administering the survey because we have a representative sample, but we had very low response rates across the board, but Miller Middle School was the highest respondent, and I would recommend starting with Miller Middle School.
And then follow up to that, would it make sense then, I mean, given the sort of exigencies of the last year and the situation under which we were doing the first phase of the study, to redo the survey in the coming year when we expect to have more students in person on campuses? Is that a recommendation?
Oh, I would highly recommend that. That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks. And so then my second question is for Dr. Cardona, and my question is where is the data for Mendez and Goodnight? Because that's alarming to me.
We just had a data glitch, from what I understand. We had issues transposing the data from their system to our system.
And so is that something that we're going to work on? Because it seems really important that we include that data.
We actually are talking to a company that works, Qualtrics, who you all work with, so that we possibly could help with that, speed that process up.
Okay.
Yeah, it does several things. It addresses the data, it addresses parent surveys, engagement surveys, student surveys, and they use Qualtrics as their hub. I think that'll help.
Okay, because it seems, I mean, I'm not saying that Miller isn't an outlier, but if we're not including the data from the largest middle school, that seems like it could definitely have an effect on whatever trends we're seeing or other issues. So I hope that we can work that out, but thanks.
Dr. Sami?
Yes, thank you. Can you give us some examples of the supplemental supports you're talking about? On the last suggestion, you said reduce the use of supplemental supports. What kinds of supplemental supports are you talking about specifically?
Yeah, so when we think about alternative pathways to success, when we think about at the high school in particular, there are many different ways that students can achieve success, or taking alternative programs, or engaging in other activities that don't necessarily align to core instruction. And so when we think about the amount of resources and capacity of our teachers and school leaders at the school, it might behoove us to slow down and focus on the core instruction so that we can build back the motivation and investment for students to remain and sustain through high school.
Thank you.
Mr. Redondo?
Thank you, Ms. Cantu. My question is regarding the recommendation, or I guess the finding, that suspension leads to increased dropout rate. So is that like y'all are making connections between students who are suspended in their 6th, 7th, 8th grade year to them dropping out of the high school? Is that where that came from, or can you explain how that was bore out of y'all's research in the ISD?
Yeah, both. And Dr. Benson, do you want to take it and I'll close it out?
Yeah, so within the report, you'll see research recommendations. And so we didn't have a direct one-to-one connection because we don't have access to sort of connecting the students who were in middle school to the students who dropped out. We didn't go back that far in terms of the data. We didn't have access to it. We didn't have time to do that. But looking at it over the course of 3 years, there's a significant spike in the middle school, according to research, and even too high of suspension in the elementary school. So if you look at the report, read the research around suspension and propensity for dropouts, that students who experience even one incidence of out-of-school suspension in middle school or in elementary school have a 50% higher probability rate of dropping out in high school. And so that's research that's been done over time. And so we recommend looking into and considering alternatives to out-of-school suspension.
Thank you.
And I think that also the reality is that's the data, and we're practitioners here, and so we know if our kids are not in the classroom, we can expect for them to sustain in the classroom. I think adopting other models such as restorative justice or community circles could be a great alternative to just kicking kids out of the classroom for unfavorable behaviors. And I think it's also worth coming back to the drawing board to determine what is an unfavorable behavior versus what is something that a kid might just didn't eat breakfast that morning. That's why they're not picking up their pencil and writing when you ask them to. We have to dive a little deeper and look at the psychology behind student behavior because these suspensions are too high.
Thank you.
Ms. Mejia?
Thank you. I have a couple of questions for y'all. As far as attendance, how did y'all count the absent days? So for example, if one student missed one class period and then came back throughout the day, did y'all count that as just one class missed, or like the whole entire day, half day? So that's my first question.
Okay.
Right, I can take that one. And so yeah, we received the report in a way it was according to period missed, and so we couldn't make any speculation if it was a whole day, if it was a half day. We got it by student ID number and the period that they missed, right? And so we determined a threshold of 201 plus days for chronic absenteeism. So again, we have no idea if the student missed a half a day, if they missed a whole day. The data, the way in which it was received from middle school and high school was according to period, and so that's the way in which we analyzed it and reported the data.
Okay, thank you. And then my next question has to do with dropouts. So in the report, y'all presented that the female dropouts spiked, and within the 3 years. So did y'all ever find out the reason behind that?
Right. So this is something that, in terms of like handling the data, Code 14 that was used according to the data is one of 17 different, not 17, several different categories, I think, under Code 14, if I can remember correctly, but it wasn't recorded. And so we have to sort of make the connection between how we are coding the data in a way that's easily accessible, so we know the reason that students dropped out. So we didn't have access to the granular data. I'm sure it's probably there somewhere, but we would highly recommend, especially among the Hispanic female students, looking into sort of the subcategory in terms of why these students dropped out.
Thank you.
Anyone else? My question has to do with the students that were at the rebound or the alternative campus. Was any research done on them?
We didn't have granular data on that. We did count them as a part of the sort of the exclusionary practice data, so ISS, OSS, DAEP, but we didn't have, that wasn't a part of our granular research. Something we could do, but it was this data received, and that's the way we analyzed it, but we didn't go deep into it at all.
Not even the survey?
So we're not sure whether, so we gave the survey to the district. We recommend that it was administered over the course of time, but I don't believe we included those students specifically. We included the 5 schools in the survey data, but it's something that could be re-administered at the alternative setting.
Anyone else? Thank you. You can
All right, team, for the sake of time, I want to push us forward to talk about the curriculum portion. That was just the system and structures. And if we could get the PowerPoint back up. Oh, is that something that I have to? No. Oh, I just said it. Oh. Right. For the next 10 minutes, I'll talk about the curriculum and instruction audit. I'll go over the big rocks, which are the large recommendations for the district. I'll provide findings from the teacher self-efficacy survey, as well as the culturally responsive teaching, in addition to the approach to academics. So when I think about big rocks for the district or recommendations, the first one is to establish relational trust. Throughout our interviews, including our principal interviews, as well as the surveys that we administered from to teachers, there seems to be a lack of trust and faith in each other. And when I think about the mission critical work that we're doing each and every day to educate kids, we have to have a stronger relationship with each other, and we have to build a sense of trust. When you look at Lencioni's 5 functions of a team, trust is the foundation. And in the absence of trust, we cannot expect high academic results. I also think that data literacy is a concern when asked teachers as well as district employees, how are we utilizing data to drive instruction? It was not clear to us how data was used to inform this instruction. And so I think about systems such that will allow teachers to acquire data easily and be able to use data to inform their everyday practice. I think about management systems, which Dr. Cardona already spoke about, as well as inform instruction. So every day that you're standing in front of your students to teach, what are you basing those objectives and instruction off of? In the absence of data, you're just sort of like teaching in the wind. And a huge recommendation that I have for the district is to consider adopting data days into the academic calendar. That could look like releasing students early once a month for teachers to come together to analyze their student progress and create action plans such as reteach plans to sort of close that gap in the data that they're seeing. Or once a quarter where kids are not in school and they're provided with a supplemental packet at home so that teachers can come together, establish those professional learning communities, and actually dive into the data. Time is obviously of the essence, and so if we create a systemic way to attack this problem, I think that we could have teachers better set up for success to talk about their student achievement data. Also a culture of development and trying to secure observations. It was incredibly challenging to get teachers motivated and invested to participate in the school observations. And it makes me think that we need to reimagine the purpose of observation and feedback, not seeing it as an evaluative tool, but more so as a developmental tool. When I was a school leader, I went into my teachers' classrooms, and I wasn't there to evaluate them. I was there to help them learn and grow in their practice. And I think that could be done in a few different ways. District-wide unit planning days where teachers are coming together to co-construct units together. That could happen in lesson study, where you have a master teacher identified at a school, and when teachers are on their planning period, they can go into those classrooms and watch that teacher in action. As well as peer observations. I think that peer observations would reduce that barrier of feeling like, oh, I'm being evaluated, and so let me put on a show. No, it's not about that. It's around, hey, how do we learn and grow and be better for kids? And then I think continuity of learning is very important. So I noted horizontal and vertical. During the summer times, teachers should be thinking about what are those TEKs for the next grade and the grade below as I'm planning out my units for the year. Thinking about cross-cutting concepts. So what vocabulary words are applicable in math that are also applicable in science and ELA? We should be talking about those as well as designing lessons around that. And then differentiation. We did not see differentiation occurring in any of the observations. And so you'll see in the report that we have recommendations around when students are engaging in their independent practice, teachers should be pulling small groups, teachers should be academically monitoring and identifying students that might need additional help. High expectations. We want to see more higher order thinking questions in the classroom, and that could be essential questions should be posted on the board. What is going to get students on the edge of their seats when it comes to the curriculum? You can pique their interest by asking a really good and juicy question at the beginning of a lesson. We need to increase the student discourse. There were students that were just sitting and getting. And if students are not doing the talking in the classroom, why are they there? And so I want us to think about how we shift that cognitive lift to have our teachers be more of a facilitator of learning as opposed to someone as the holder of knowledge and doing all of the teacher talk. In regards to teacher self-efficacy, I want to highlight a couple of strengths that came from the self-efficacy survey, and the research suggests that when teachers are displaying higher levels of efficacy, they're going to lead to higher levels of academic outcomes. And so teachers from the survey felt like their classroom management systems were strong. Now, that was a surprise to me considering the disciplinary challenges that we've seen come from the structural data, and it made me wonder, is the punitive and more consequential approach, do teachers see that as effective classroom management as opposed to taking a restorative approach or a buy-in approach? Teachers felt that they could provide strong alternative explanations to students as well as influencing and reinforcing classroom rules. Some opportunities for the districts. Most of the teachers stated that family engagement was a challenge. They are having challenges connecting with families and building relationships with them. Motivating students, particularly managing individual student behaviors. This came out as something that we need help with, and it's also evident in the disciplinary data. So some recommendations here. We should provide district-wide recommendations for family engagement. When I was a school leader in Miami, I would invite parents out to class at night, like you all are sitting here at a board meeting. We would just have school twice. So my teachers, they would teach the same lesson that they taught during that day to the parents at night. That was a way to build not only a connection to the academic expectations that our students are learning, but also a way to get parents brought into the school community. We need to find ways to elevate student voice, and so continue to provide those student surveys so that we can get a better understanding of how they are experiencing school, and then provide resources for teachers to motivate students. Considering the fact that that was so alarming from the teacher self-efficacy survey, we need to do a better job of helping our teachers motivate students that might not feel, or that they are perceiving are not motivated to learn. Finish these up. Culturally responsive teaching. So some strengths, teachers felt like they are strong at relationship building, establishing trust, and building on prior knowledge. Areas where they felt like they could use some support includes greeting students in their native language, praising English learners in their native language, as well as parent communication. And so I'm starting to see a connection here between students' identity and cultures at home not being seamlessly woven into what they're experiencing at the school site, and this is based off of teacher perception. One of my top recommended books and favorite books is Zaretta Hammond's Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain. She talks about how neuroplasticity and how learning is actually generated if we take time to create those learning partnerships with students. So what would it mean for us to reduce the power dynamic in the classroom? I know that I'm the teacher, but I'm here to learn just as much as you, the student, are here to learn. This book's highlight that in addition to her Ready for Rigor framework. And then another recommendation Dr. Geneva gave, she has dimensions of culturally responsive teaching. So for example, one of her dimensions is to build bridges. And so every single lesson should have a connection between your students' home life and their culture in addition to the academic content. And to close us out, our academic and instructional approach, some strengths that we saw there, teachers felt like they were able to teach their students about their cultural contributions to society. So how has their individual cultures contributed to our identity as American citizens? Many opportunities here. Collaborate with teachers at other schools. So how can we bring a 4th grade elementary teacher from one school together with another 4th grade elementary teacher to do some collaborative or co-construction of units? Collaboration with curriculum specialists at the district. This was cited as well, that teachers are yearning for more collaborative opportunities and resources from the district. That continuity of learning that I spoke about earlier. So when we're planning during the summer, we need to look at the grade below as well as the grade above to design our instruction. And this one was also very concerning for me. If teachers aren't understanding school and district goals, then where are we headed? And so there was an alarming amount of teachers who mentioned that they weren't aware of the district goals as well as school-specific goals. And so I think that is also something to be called out. I know I just narrated it all out. I'll pause and see what questions you have about the curriculum and instruction audit.
Ms. Halsey?
Yeah, my question is to Dr. Cardona, are we going to be having Dr. Wallace and Dr. Benson help us develop the teacher professional development that will happen in August for the 2 weeks? Because I think it seems like some of these activities are very specific and could be implemented immediately and really get that ball going. But I would imagine, especially since Dr. Ruiz-Mills is not here, that we might, is that part of the contract with the consultants, or could it be?
That I don't believe is a part of the contract, though they are helping us much more than, like, they're really getting involved with us and giving us good advice on what we should do. We have started building some of that into our professional development. You hear Dr. Wallace talking about Tier 1 instruction. That really is moving away from an intervention mindset, right? We know kids are coming back with a lot of trauma, but if we don't have good lessons that are rigorous and we default to, oh, Miss Halsey's, poor her, and then we kind of lower the standard, that's where this mindset comes in and we do more harm to that child than anything. So we have started building that in. I know that Ms. Fowler and Mr. Espericueta and the instructional coaches are all working around incorporating a lot of culturally responsive practices. We have a framework. It's going to have all of us need to support the framework. The framework is the effective school framework. There's lesson plannings, there's the TEAC objectives, the ELPs, everything's built in, data disaggregation, PLCs. The challenge has been in COVID, trying to make that happen systemically. And so that's a big push for us moving forward. And I've always said we don't really care about STAR scores, but we need to have really good, effective lessons. So we are building them, and then they're kind of adapting as they're growing and learning to help us as we go.
I mean, it seems, personally speaking, this is the highest priority for me because I think it is inclusive of the other concerns that we are seeing with mental health, with students struggling in any number of capacities. So if we start from this place and bring everybody together
Correct.
and address it from holistically, with everybody understanding the urgency and the specific areas in which we need to act and intervene, it seems like we will be better off in the long run than if we tried to do something piecemeal. So.
Correct.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions? Okay.
Again, thank you all so much for the opportunity, and I look forward to engaging with you soon. Everything's fun.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wallace.
Thank you. And thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Benson. Has your wife
Thank
had her
you.
baby yet?
I don't think he
I
heard
didn't
you.
hear you.
Didn't hear you. Has your wife had her baby yet?
No, we are close. So I'm sorry I couldn't be there with y'all, but we are days away from welcoming a little one. And so I do appreciate your flexibility and allowing me to come in virtually.
Best wishes to you all. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Benson. And we're ready for our, did you have anything else under superintendent?
No, ma'am, I don't.
Is there any chance that you can start thinking about our academic test results, that they can be presented in July or thing?
Yes, but they won't be ready. They are ready, but they won't be ready because hopefully we'll have an assistant superintendent that can help message that. But you'll notice the data reflects being out for
Because
15
you're
months.
using data from the
Correct.
testing to prepare the teachers and,
It's a baseline data set we have. You'll notice one thing, the instructional coaches, I do want to praise the instructional coaches, specifically Wendy Zeiger, who put all this together. So I will send you, it's a huge data set. You know, I would ask that you keep it confidential because it does have teacher names on it, by class, by demographic, by sub-pop. But it's a spreadsheet that's probably 15 tabs. And probably if you tried to print it, would be about 500 or 600 pages. And so we're trying to condense it, but that takes time. Part of that is the response to how we come back. You know, if you remember, we usually have like an administrative response, and it deals with PD and kind of what we're focusing on for the next year. And so we want the new assistant superintendent and the team to put that together. It probably won't be ready till August. You'll see the data before then. It's just going to be data without a story. That makes sense.
but in the past, we've had principals give presentations, and I thought that was
That's
really
a part of the
effective.
process.
Yeah.
That is a part of our new process, but
I like
the
that
principals don't
process.
know that yet. So. Well, they actually do know, but we talked to them last week, so they know they're going to be presenting in an academic update as we return, each of them. Yeah.
I think it shows that they take ownership over their
Oh, they
scores,
do.
and so I
They
like
do.
that. Well, let's go on to our construction report. Mr. Sandoval?
Good evening, Board President Cantu, Board of Trustees, Mr. Cardona. I'll be delivering the June construction update. As we look at the budget, as we start off every meeting, no significant movement on the budget. We're still projecting in excess of 4.9 million to look at other needs around the district. I've got that list of potential projects nearly finalized. We're getting estimates on some of the work, and we expect to have that to y'all in front of y'all over the next 2 meetings, probably realistically the August meeting. We'll also get a better idea of where we're going to fall on the De Zavala and Miller projects on the budget. But I don't see anything of significant coming out of those projects. We're going to take a look at Miller, and I'll be honest with you, we are struggling a little bit at Miller Middle School. We've had some challenges trying to complete phase 1, as you can see there. And that's the new admin and the band area. I call it the band area. There's more to it over there. But we're probably 90% complete. But the 2 central items that are holding us back from getting a temporary certificate of occupancy are, believe it or not, handrails and guardrails that go on the stairs and up on the mezzanines, and then millwork and labs. And the fire department will not give us a TCO until we have those handrails in. Both of these are with subcontractors that Weber has continued to work with them. It's not easy to just change. Obviously, it's not easy to change subs right in the middle of it because they're so far along, but we are continuing to work with them. And I've got an update from today from Miller this morning that they visited with the manufacturer of the handrails. They have the material. It's in the finished process right now. They've agreed that the week of June 28th, which is next week, they'll be getting these installed. And it's a vendor or subcontractor that's in the Rio Grande Valley. In millwork, the crews were out there last Tuesday, and they worked through Saturday. They've got a workroom done, the nurses' suite, several classrooms, the conference room. They're coming in again tomorrow, and they expect to have all this finalized hopefully by the end of the week. So we're making some progress. So the bottom line is the furniture is actually in the building. We just haven't set it up. The problem was that the library sits right in the middle between D and F. And we have all the furniture staged over there by the band hall, but we need to get access through the library to get to the new admin. So we've talked to the furniture folks. They'll be back out on actually July 19th is when we're actually ready to install furniture. And we should have all that. I'm confident we're going to have all that ready for students and staff by the time teachers return the second week in August, third week in August. Demo on phase 3A and 3B has started. And once again, that's going to be, I expect to have construction ongoing when student and staff return. However, we've got a plan where we're going to isolate that construction. There's 2 critical rooms that we're going to need, and that's the dance room and an art room. And Weber understands that. They know that. We've got a plan to try to get those done, but everything else will be isolated. What's left is some labs that we've worked with the campus staff that don't necessarily need right now, and then an open space, a collaborative area that will still be under construction. So more to follow on Miller. I did want to provide you all some pictures from the entry from last month versus this month. You can see the canopies in place. The next photo is some of the metal panels, which Weber wasn't expecting to get installed till July, and this is the outside of the building. And as you can see, they're almost done. The backside is completed, and they just have the top right corner to finish. Expect them to finish this week. And then there's some of the demo area, the main corridor hallway that leads to the classroom wings. The area on the right was done last summer, and the area on the left is what's being demoed. And then that's the old library/band hall we used last year due to COVID on the picture on the right that's being demoed. De Zavala, feel a whole lot more comfortable with De Zavala. We've got the library. We've got access to the library. That was completed at the end of May. Right now, we're working on phase 3B, which is the last one, and those are the classroom wings, the 2nd through 5th grade classroom wings, the kitchen, and the cafeteria. Some items that have been done over the last month. A lot of work obviously was done in the library. We got the marquee sign up. We did some asbestos abatement as soon as the kids were out, or the students were out on Friday. We started asbestos abatement that Monday. And then also we finished the demo in the main corridor, the cafeteria, and the A hallway. I've got photos to show you. Items over the next 60 days or 30 days, we started the demo in the B hallway. We're finishing up the kitchen, the cafeteria, and then just looking at grading and outdoor learning spaces. We'll have some nice outdoor learning spaces done by the end of summer, and then still supports in B hallway, mechanical, electrical, in the A hallway. That's the kitchen last month. You can see the progress over on the right. That'll be the cooking area. We expect that the kitchen equipment will be delivered over the next 2 weeks. That's the cafeteria demo. And we were there as soon as that last lunch period ended on that Thursday or Friday. I can't remember the last day of school, but we were there ready to move tables. And Weber Bartlett was in there to knock the temporary wall down, and we got started pretty quick in there as soon as we had the opportunity to do so. That's the A hallway demo, that's the B hallway, and then the main corridor. The items to the left of the main corridor were done last summer, and we'll be doing some ceiling work, floor work, and knocking a door out to the courtyard, to the outdoor learning spaces on the right-hand side. And that's all I have. Do y'all have any questions?
I'm good. Trustees, anybody? Thank you very much,
Thank y'all.
Mr. Sandoval. Appreciate it. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Redondo?
Thank you, Ms. Cantu. Mr. Sandoval, I just had a question on the STEAM Center at San Marcos High School. I know we haven't closed out that project yet, and I think we're going on year 2 of when that was supposed to be delivered to us. So is there any end in sight there to the punch list and the things that the contractor needs to do there?
So, yeah, so July 19th, the next board meeting is when I expect to have that in front of y'all. And I've been hesitant on closing that out only because of there is some punch list items, and it's down to like 30. And these are, not major items. But I don't want to close it out because of the issues we've been having with this contractor. And I'll be honest with y'all. So I've held on to it. I've held that over them. It will probably be done. I shouldn't say, but it will be done by next board meeting. They're making progress. We're having bi-weekly conference calls, looking at specific items, holding them accountable on what needs to be done. And they lost some focus over here. It's basically the same team that they have at both campuses, and that's just not working. So.
Thank you, Mr. Sandoval, and the reason why I bring that up is because of what you just said. I know this board had the opportunity to go with a different contractor at Miller, and a majority of my colleagues chose to choose Weber again, and so my concern obviously, as you and your staff and the ISD work to get Miller Middle School as complete as possible going into the school year, I'm assuming there might be some associated challenges with that after the fact, right? So here we are almost 2 years after the STEAM Center was supposed to be complete, and I appreciate your due diligence to make sure that the contractor completes that project to our expectations. But again, I just appreciate everything that you're doing to see that the STEAM Center is completed and delivered as it should be. But I just wanted to point that out to my colleagues as we look to Miller and the delays that they're experiencing there. So thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you. We ready for ESSER III update?
Good evening, Board. It's my pleasure to present the ESSER III update in our plan to utilize our ESSER III grant. As a reminder from our last board meeting, the ESSER III grant is, the intent and purpose of the grant is to fund, to safely reopen and sustain the safe operation of schools and address the impact of coronavirus pandemic on students. The ESSER III grant funding requirements, so remember that we are required, or all districts are required, to allocate a minimum of 20% of the grant to go toward the following: evidence-based interventions, and also to ensure that those interventions respond to students' academic, social, and emotional needs and address the disproportionate impact of coronavirus on Title I homeless and foster care student populations. ESSER III grant requirements continued. We had to, and all districts had to, engage stakeholders to get that feedback from the public to ensure that the plan is developed around that feedback as well. We reached out, and as it stipulates in the grant, reaching out to students, families, campus and district administrators, teachers, principals, and so forth. As we gathered our feedback through the month of May, we reached out and looked at, I'm sorry, I've skipped ahead. Other requirements of the grant is that we post online after receiving our notification and grant award our use of fund plan that you will see here in a second, and then also post online within 30 days of receiving our notification of grant award our back to school plan. Now keep in mind that this was a package from across the United States, and Texas was ahead of most other states in bringing students back to campus, and of course San Marcos we were as well. So you'll see that our grant, although aligns with the allowable uses, is shaped differently than just the true reopening and reintroduction of students on campuses. I also want to note that we will post both our plan and for reentry, and then also our plan for the utilization of funds on our Rattler roadmap for public access. As the other thing to keep in mind as we are planning our ESSER III grant, we have to ensure that we utilize our federal grants that will come to us that are entitlements, such as Title I and Title II. There are minimum thresholds that you can carry over, and we need to be sure that we utilize those funds according to those grants as well. We also have other state allotments that have mandatory spend percentages as well to support those types of programs. And then also we have other federal grants outside of the federal grants number one, such as ESSER I or CRF, and then also ESSER II. So as we gathered feedback in the month of May, we reached out to parents, students, faculty, and staff, and community stakeholders through surveys. You can see examples of our community stakeholders. Not all are listed, but an example are some of those that we reached out to, and even reaching out to our school board members for that feedback as well. As we developed our plan based on the feedback, the other stakeholders that we addressed as well, we met with department leaders, we met with principals, we met with even students from Dr. Cardona's student leadership group to gather feedback. We really did have a comprehensive and extensive needs assessment process. As we gathered that feedback and applied it to our plan, you can see our total allocation is $16,471,892. As we built our plan, you can see that targeted for learning loss, we're at 59%, which is above the 20% minimum. You can see as well that percentage-wise, the breakdowns of how we planned our resources and our funds of ESSER III. And the next slide breaks these percentages down a little bit further. So, for example, you'll see class size reduction, we allocated $5.9 million. And keep in mind, these are examples of, but not a thorough list of everything falls within this category. And then this is also that spending plan, if you will, that we've hosted on our Rattler roadmap on our website for public to be able to review. But going back to this $5.9 million for class size reduction, $433,000 going toward facility and maintenance improvements. Health and safety, we allocated $556,000. Special education is allocated $900,000. Social emotional learning is allocated $630,000. Wraparound services $755,000. EL and bilingual services is allocated $514,000. Technology resources, we allocated $1.5 million, and in teaching and learning, we allocated $5.1 million. I did want to also introduce, because it is also in statute, the ESSER II grant has just been introduced to districts through TEA on June 6th. The funds are a one-time purpose like ESSER II or ESSER III and ESSER I. SMCISD understands that the funds are, understands the funds of, the use of the funds for ongoing purposes could result in funding deficits in future years after the funding expires on September 30th, 2023, and that SMCISD makes no assumption that the state will provide replacement state funds in the future based on the ESSER II, ESSER III grant. And as that grant unfolds, we still have, districts throughout the state still have questions in terms of how TEA is going to actually portion those grant funds out to districts. There is still some talk and some guidance that still needs to be issued from TEA to districts so that we can properly plan ESSER II. My plan as we go through the summer and we see those guidance from TEA, again, we'll have a solid plan for our expenditures with ESSER II. That is the end of the presentation, and if you have questions.
Everybody has questions. We'll start with Ms. Halsey.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Doyle. I have two questions. My first is on the slide that talks about return to in-person instruction and continuity of services plan, you say that we have to consider significant changes to CDC guidance. What does that mean?
Yes, ma'am. That's actually part of the statute of the grant from the United States, from USDE. So every 6 months, we need to revisit our plan and continuously get that feedback on how we shape and continue expending our grant funds. So part of the grant stipulation is that we review CDC guidance. And so in the case of states who hadn't opened up yet, like we have, what the CDC is recommending at that point in time versus in 6 months from now versus in 12 months from now versus in 18 months from now. So the grant application in the statute is guiding districts to say revisit CDC guidance and ensure that if there's any changes, if you will, that these funds can help support those changes in the reopening plans.
So it's essentially following the best practices protocol that we've been following since the beginning of the pandemic by staying current. Okay, thank you. My other question is, when we're talking about the specific dollars allocated to different categories, the teaching and learning with $5.1 million that includes student technology devices, online programs for academic supports, and supplemental curriculum resources is concerning to me in two ways. One, I'm unclear as to why more technology devices would be put into this category rather into technology resources. And also, I'm wondering about the online programs for academic supports and exactly what that means, because my hope is that we have the vast majority of our students in person. So what does this mean?
Great question. So the first part of your question regarding the student technology devices, we focused, our mindset is that they're for ed tech support, right? Computer devices and things like that for one-to-one initiatives, if you will. So they could fall within technology resources or teaching and learning, but because they have the emphasis on education, they're placed into the teaching learning category. And then to your second part or your second question, those curriculum resources are still interwoven into ed tech. They're supplemental online programs, if you will, that can still be used, and the focus is using them as we are in person as well, not necessarily with the focus in on virtual use.
So then I guess my question might be for Dr. Cardona, following up with that. Does that mean that the fall instruction is going to be continuing through Canvas the way that it has been during the pandemic? Because that was not my impression.
No, those are, I think, two separate things. I think we're coming back in person, but he's talking specifically like there's one grade level that's looking at a new math curriculum that's more rigorous. The one we had wasn't sufficient and sufficiently rigorous and didn't show good results. And so those are things we're funding that aren't currently, so we can get ahead of the game, because adoption comes at a later date. And so we're just trying to get ahead of the game before we get funding in a different manner so that teachers can get the PD, because there's required PD for that. So like Rodriguez uses Summit Learning, which is a free product, but there's significant cost for PD. Bowie also is multi-age and uses Summit Learning for 4th and 5th grade. So that's what that's addressing. Technology resources is the infrastructure. Would be like the LMS system. That'd be Canvas.
Okay, so let me ask in this way. So, and this last year I had a student in elementary school, a student in middle school, and a student in high school, and all three of them were receiving instruction, whether they were at home or on campus through the Canvas platform for all of their courses.
Correct.
So will next year look like that, or will next year look like the year previous where we had one devices at 6 through 12, and my middle school and high schooler did some of their work through ed tech programs and had some of their instruction through ed tech, but also had some of their instruction through the teacher directly one-on-one like this, face-to-face, without the devices?
It's teacher-led instruction, and Canvas is the expectation for usage pre-K-12. Is that a good answer? Is it? Yeah.
I still don't understand. So does that mean it will look like it did before pandemic, or did it?
A mixture. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be a mixture.
It's not going to all be through
No.
Canvas like it was?
No, but if
Okay.
a parent needs to upload information through Canvas,
Sure, that's great. I love having the more available,
videos on there, they can.
right, more options available. It's just I'm hoping that return to in-person learning means my children are on screens a lot less than they have been, honestly.
There's even a move to reduce the number of assessments next year by the curriculum department to make it like really meaningful assessments.
I think all kids need a big screen break right now.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Arredondo?
The old school.
Thank you, Ms. Cantu. My first question is more in regards to us recognizing these funds through like the budget office. I have questions about the plan itself, but my first question is I would assume for Dr. Barton. So Dr. Barton, we are going to apply for these funds after we present this plan and it's posted on our website and we do all of these administrative things that make us eligible for these dollars. And then we receive it in one giant check for $16 million from the state of Texas, or does it come in quarterly in tranches? How does that work?
It's called a drawdown. So essentially, we never get $16 million. They never send us over tranches of cash, bags of cash, however we want to frame that. It never comes. What we say is we are making this expenditure that qualifies under this grant, and then they send us that amount of money. We're able to draw down that amount of money. Does that make sense?
Yes. So, for instance, when we say, and now we're getting to the plan, that one of our priorities is class size reduction at 5.9 million. When we hire a teacher to accomplish that goal, we request it in a single application, or we're hiring a batch of teachers or a batch of instructional assistants. what does that look like?
So in terms of, I just want to clarify if I understand your question. Are you talking about how we're paying for those folks?
Yes.
So it's the drawdown. So those people will be designated with a budget code that aligns to the grant, if you will. And so Finance Department will make drawdowns, monthly drawdowns, to, I wouldn't say recoup, but to apply charges to the grant.
So would we get the funding for that position for the entire year that they're hired, or would that be something the budget office is consistently having to request a drawdown as long as that employee?
So the budget that you're seeing here is based on the lifetime of the grant, which goes to, we have to make expenditures. The last date is September 2024, right? So the plan has a 3-year mindset, if you will. So I think, does that answer your question?
So
it's not
in like
necessarily
year
a
one, we hired 10 new teachers to accomplish this goal. So are we drawing down the funds for those 10 teachers at that one time, and that will then go into the ISD's bank account to pay for them for the rest of the academic
Monthly,
year?
yes, correct.
Monthly, okay. Okay, I guess that was my first question, to understand the entire allocation over the next 3 years. The second one, and without getting too much into the weeds on this, because again, it's just like a bullet point that represents $5.9 million, right, without any supplemental information. I have concerns or interest in the sustainability of these initiatives, right, what they look like. On first pass, when it says that we're going to spend $5.9 million to hire additional classroom teachers and instructional assistants, again, what does that look like? How many classroom teachers are we hiring over the next 3 years? How many instructional assistants? Where are they going to be located? Are there schools in the ISD that just have numerous vacant classrooms that those teachers and those IAs are going to go into? Again, like, what is the back end plan to implement each of these bullets? And I don't expect you to answer that now, or but again, just moving forward, having those conversations and what that looks like in regards to implementation and sustainability. And the other one, in my personal opinion, is $453,000 to replace HVAC systems. I would individually like to see that come out of the bond dollars that we have left from the bond, that in my opinion is something that the voters approved to do. I would like to see these funds allocated again to supplemental instruction or learning. And I understand that there are categories in which we have to spend these dollars on, right? And I'm sure y'all are meeting some type of formula from the state and the federal government. But if there's any way that we can loosen up some of these obligations with leftover bond dollars, I would much rather us spend those dollars on HVAC versus COVID relief funds that, in my opinion, should be directly spent on students and loss of instruction, et cetera, with the understanding, I know, that the Fed and the state are probably telling us you have to spend X amount for here, 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 and here, and y'all are probably plugging in those numbers. But if there's any flexibility in that, I hope those conversations are happening laterally across like construction and facilities and y'all and all the above.
Yeah. Thank you.
Dr. Salmi, did you have your hand up? No? Okay. Ms. Villalpando?
Yes, well, my question is just in relation to what Mr. Arredondo just spoke about. I was going to ask about the same things. But my concern is that after 2024,
Yes.
that's the end of the program.
Yes, ma'am.
So we're not required to keep the staff that we've already hired to do this, or that
We can't keep the staff. And that's why Mr. Doyle was so explicit in reading that at the end. It's a real challenge. And as Trustee Arredondo was saying, you have to keep going back and evaluating what's working. So Mr. Doyle could give you a beautiful plan right now, but in 4 years it won't look the same. Because what we plan right now, if it's not working, we don't want to hold on to that. We want to reconfigure it to have an impact on kids in schools and the learning loss. And then in 4 years, we've got to be able to say, okay, what worked really well and how are we going to make that the norm without having a budget cliff where we've got $4 or $5 million extra showing up in that last year. And that's not work you do at the end, that's work you do all along the way. And every 6 months, we're committed to reevaluate this.
I had the same question because I was worried when you hire these teachers to go into the class size reduction category, you're going to let them know whatever they sign that they're coming on just because of COVID relief money.
Yes, ma'am. It's posted as grant funded, and that's a conversation that Dr. Baez and our HR team is very upfront with.
Okay, so they'll know up front that their job's not a permanent job. Didn't even,
So with that being said, I'm going to follow up on President Cantu's question. So since y'all have to reevaluate every 6 months, does that mean that there is a chance that either an instructional aide or a teacher could be let go after 6 months, or like every 6 months?
I think we've got enough movement within our organization. I don't think you'd see people let go. There'd be some shifting. But if there was a plan that we said we're going to add an instructional assistant to this classroom and they're going to, and it wasn't helping kids, I don't think we're going to stay in that for another year because we made a commitment tonight. We're going to reconfigure and use that money in a different way. And it may be, 2 IAs become a teacher, 3 IAs become a teacher, and we do it in a different way. But for the life of this grant, the goal is to impact the student learning loss. And so we have to keep measuring that and making sure we're impacting it.
And just as a point of clarification, because this isn't central office plugging in stuff. This is conversations happening with campus principals and different departments. Like literally the principals will come in and sit with finance and with HR and with Mr. Doyle and with Mr. Barton. Like they come in and they are assessing their campus needs, and then they have conversations with us and then we adapt that way. It's not us telling them, hey, you're getting this and this is how you need to use them and we'll come back. It's being driven now. Literacy is a big push. That's probably the biggest push, I would say, at the elementary level. But it is a conversation based on the needs of the campus.
Are we also in conversation with the regional leaders? Because it seems to me, obviously, this is something that the entire country is grappling, right? That we are not doing it by ourselves. We don't have all of the answers. And it seems working in cooperation with other school teams and other school leaders regionally across the state, not just at the behest of TEA, would be helpful in this process, because obviously every district is going to have those same kind of contracts. I mean, there's going to be a whole cadre of new teachers that come out of this based on this grant funding, right?
We do meet as superintendents regionally at Region 13, but I will say that every district is very unique. I know some districts are already putting out plans that they're using 75% for facility building and just doing the minimum for students. Some are doing pay raises, which we don't believe in. But yes, we do have conversations, and rarely do we all agree.
No, I think that's fine. I mean, I'm not, and I trust in y'all to come up. I mean, you know our students and you know our teams, and I trust that entirely. I just think it's always great to have other conversations with other people and see what comes out of it. It doesn't mean that we have to do the same as anybody else.
We do cyber stalk other districts, though, just so that we know.
No, I mean, I think a great idea can come from a lot of places. So, thank you.
we do kind of believe in raises, though. Not off of this money.
The board believes in it based on the general fund.
Mr. Redondo.
Thank you, Ms. Cantu. Just to follow up with what Dr. Cardona said, as we move forward and hire an assistant superintendent over curriculum instruction and assessments, and as we continue to have these conversations, I'm very interested in seeing how we are utilizing these funds to be responsive to each individual campus's needs. So I understand that some of these goals that are outlined here in tonight's presentation might fit an overall district vision of something, but again, like Dr. Cardona said, there might be class size reduction efforts at individual campuses. So I'd really like to see that broken down for my personal benefit and understanding, mainly because this is probably the largest infusion of cash from the federal government we're ever going to see in our lifetimes in regards to public education. And so making sure that it's getting to the students and the faculty and staff who need it the most for those instructional challenges that they're experiencing and the effects from the pandemic and the shutdown and virtual learning, I'm very interested in following along, and I will wait for this answer at a future board meeting, but I'm definitely interested in having this conversation be a reoccurring agenda item, whether it's quarterly or whatever that looks like, to the administration, what is most beneficial, just to stay updated on what funds are being expended, what initiatives are being implemented. And again, this is a conversation for another time. The technology infrastructure refresh and student technology devices. I know we have expended a significant amount of funds going one-to-one, providing Chromebooks, iPads, various devices across the ISD. I'm going to kiss my ever future endorsement for Microsoft ever getting it, because I personally am not a fan of Chromebooks. I find them difficult to use. I don't think they deliver the level of service that some of our students need. But that's like a personal, anecdotal perception of having seen them being implemented in the classroom. So I'm really curious what that looks like, what devices we're buying, the longevity of those programs, and how easily they're used by the student and grade level that we're providing them to. So again, under each of these bullets, I have a lot more questions and comments for a later date. So I look forward to frequent updates from staff regarding them.
It would make sense to tie the updates to like the 6-month cycle, right? Not like quarterly, but to the 6-month cycle. So I know with federal grants come a great deal of auditing, so other people will be watching us very carefully. And I literally signed that I don't have any other names today on a I-9 form for whatever reason, because it was in an audit. So I just say I don't have any other names and initial it. So I'm sure we'll have to do much more than that with federal dollars.
Dr. Sami?
Thank you, Ms. Cantu. The ESSER II grant, what's the timing of that compared to the ESSER III? So is there overlap in those funds? Are we going to be seeing?
So they do overlap, and so ESSER II will actually end in September of '23. So it actually has an ending, a sooner ending date than ESSER III.
And when can we expect any of these funds to start being available?
The grant has actually opened up within eGrants, but we still need some guidance from TEA to better understand how we formulate those funds to support our plan. I've reached out and got clarification based on our comprehensive needs assessment. We're able to use ESSER II funds to support our overall goals and plan that we have established. So, I will report on that once we have that plan built as well, if need be.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Mejia?
I am actually going to follow up on Trustee Arredondo's statement in regards to technology resources. So when I got sworn in as a trustee, I was given a Chromebook, and I returned it back because I don't see a functional use for a Chromebook. I don't think, in my personal opinion, I would ever buy a Chromebook. And so I'm not endorsing Apple, but that is, my preference for myself, personal use and also work. That's what I use at work. And so I would like for y'all to look into a computer that's innovative and that will actually be useful for students, and that will, that is something that's going to teach them real life skills, and that will, be useful throughout their educational.
So that was part of our planning, and I was going to let Mr. Navarez kind of talk about that student advice piece.
Okay.
So currently, we're doing Chromebooks 2nd through 8th grade. And the reason for that is to give students exposure to the Google platform, which has become a de facto standard in the majority of ISDs. Once students reach the high school level, though, we want to expose them to the Windows platform as well as Google, so they get full-blown Windows laptops at that from 9 through 12. In addition, we want to ensure that students are exposed to a wide array of different types of devices, operating systems, because in the real world, they'll be exposed to Windows, possibly Google Chrome, and Google Drive in its Google Workspace. In addition, any sort of Apple iOS devices for gaming and different forms of arts that it applies to.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
President Cantu, sorry.
Yes, Ms.
I have
Halsey?
one more comment at the risk of stating the obvious, but I just want to make sure that as we are implementing the plan that's set forth here, that we are, in all of these categories and all of the innovations that we are taking, that we are considering the findings from the audit and the equity audit and the recommendations, so that it is part and parcel, and that we don't have one plan going on over here and another plan going on over there, but everything is, yes?
Yes.
Terrific.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I think we're going to be ready for a break. Dr. Salmi, we're going to take a 5-minute break.
Then convene in closed session.
Stay with me.
Closed session next?
Well, we have to come back and then call it, right? So in 5 minutes, we'll come back here.
I think in 5 minutes, we'll just go into executive session. I need to read.
Okay, we can come back and then, yeah.
Come back over here and read it?
Yep.
Okay, we'll reconvene in 5 minutes. Need a bathroom break or something. Closed session as authorized by Section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code. Discussion regarding Miller Middle School principal. Discussion regarding Assistant Superintendent for Teaching, Learning, and Assessments. We'll be back.
Oh, you broke it.
action regarding Miller Middle School principal. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve, I hope I say her first name correctly, Samia Lewis. Is that close? Samaya. I did what he told me.
I second.
Ms. Hanson has moved that we hire Samaya Lewis. And Ms. Halsey has seconded. Ms. Halsey seconded. All in favor? 7, opposed 0. Consider action regarding assistance.
Hold on 1 second.
Ask her to speak.
Oh,
Yes.
Good evening, everyone, board, Dr. Cardona, the executive staff and community. I am Samaya Lewis, and I am completely humbled, but also extremely excited to be here. I have 3 amazing reasons why, and I hope you'll let me share it with you today. One, my first why is I am a product of the education system. My mother was a young mother, and it was my 4th, 5th, and 6th grade teacher, Nellie Walker. She's the reason I'm here today. She believed in kids. She believed that even though we came from lower socioeconomic environment, she believed that if she pushed us, that we could be whatever we wanted to be. And let me tell you the power of this teacher. She has senators, she has attorneys, she has school leaders, and we all have one teacher in common. So for me, when a teacher says I can't, I don't accept it. I'm the reason why. The students that I see every day deserve the same type of teacher that I had, who without her, I would never ever be standing here before you. On the community that I lived in, I was the only person 3 blocks over and 3 blocks back who went to college.
Wow.
Miss Jordan was the only reason why. And I decided to personally take up the charge of becoming a Nellie Walker in kids' life. So that's why I'm here today. My second reason why San Marcos? This is where my love of the education process started. I went to Southwest Texas State University, and it was there that my friends and I became tutors at the Willie Mae Mitchell Center.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, ma'am. And when I started there, I came to Southwest Texas State as a communications major. But the tutorial program is what first opened up my eye to the possibility of what adults could do in the lives of children. And that began my education pursuit. And within that pursuit, I am fortunate enough to have a plethora of experiences of working with students who deserve and need the most help. From working with students at the JJAEP with monitors on their legs, they still deserve another opportunity, to students in the special education population, and of course, those in advanced academics. There's not too many educators who can say that they've had that array of experiences in the education system, but I'm fortunate enough to be that person. Why Miller? Today, when they posted all of those, the findings of the survey, I looked at that survey and I said, you know what? They need me. They need me. Why? Because all of the things that I saw up there were things that I know that I personally believe in. And it starts with the school leader, right? If I personally believe in it, I'm going to absolutely take responsibility with you holding me accountable for everything that happens in the building. When I looked at the accountability rating, I saw a D. D to me means don't do it again. Don't do it again, right? And that will be my mantra. We will look at the needs of our students, not only their academic needs, but we know that as educators, we are facing the most difficult, challenging year that we've probably ever faced in education. And we know that this is not an easy job. However, we have to have dedicated leaders who are up for the challenge. I'm up for the challenge. This is my time. This is my season. and with the support of everyone in this room as well as the community that I cannot wait to be a part of, as well as the teachers who are there, who right now may be tools, who are applying, but I want to make them instruments, those who are ready to create possibilities for students. Thank you so much for your belief in me, and I promise you that I'm here to stay.
All right.
I'm here to stay.
Yay.
Thank you. Ready for the consideration regarding the Assistant Superintendent for Teaching, Learning, and Assessments.
Ms. Cantu.
Mr. Arredondo?
Thank you. I make a motion that the board approve Mr. Terrence Sanders to serve as the next Assistant Superintendent of Teaching, Learning, and Assessments.
I second it.
Mr. Arredondo made the motion that we accept Terrence Sanders as our next Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Teaching, Learning, and Assessments. Ms. Halsey seconds. All in favor, please raise your hand. 7, none opposed. Is he here?
He is as
He's
much
on
as he
Zoom.
can be.
Oh, he's on Zoom? Good, good. So we can see him.
Good evening. I can't see you all, but hopefully you can see and hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay. So good evening, board. My name is Terrence Sanders, and I am thrilled and just honored at the opportunity that you're bestowing upon me to trust that I will lead the Teaching, Learning, and Assessment Department in a way that will provide equity and assurances of high, rigorous instruction for all of our students. I'm excited to partner with you all. I'm excited to partner with our teachers, with our principals, with district leaders, to get an understanding of 3 things. One of the things that is foremost on my mind is what is currently working? What are we doing that's getting results? What's something that we're doing that's not getting the results that we want? And so we're going to commit to looking at a different route. And what is something that we may not be doing, but we're planning to start doing in the coming year? So sitting and listening to the discussion about the audit results, I am foremost a proponent of high quality tier 1 instruction. I believe that we give our best effort the first time around, that we plan for solid instruction, and we don't make intervention the sole game plan for teaching and learning. So I have over 18 years of experience in public education. I've worked in a number of school districts, urban in the state of Texas and in North Carolina. I'm currently a supervisor of principals in the Midwest, and I'm excited to join your team. I've heard so many great things about the work that's already taken place there, and I'm just looking forward to be a part of that team and contributing great ideas, hopefully, and you guys push me. I believe in being accountable, and accountability to me comes through support and providing resources to the individual whom we lead. So as soon as I can get down to San Marcos, I will be there in a hurry and excited to start this work alongside each and every one of you. And again, thank you for entrusting this wonderful opportunity to me, and I look forward to working alongside you.
Welcome.
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 Okay, Terrence, can you be here tomorrow?
Sure, if my boss needs me there, I'm there. Thank you.
You need him. Move into the consent agenda items. A, approval of minutes for regular scheduled meeting on May 17th and special call board meeting on June 7th.
I move that we accept the minutes for May 18th and June 7th.
Second.
Moved by Dr. Salmi and seconded by Mr. Arredondo that we approve the minutes for May 17th and June 7th. All in favor? 7, none opposed. Consider resolution acknowledging review and approval of investment policy and strategies.
I so move.
Second.
Moved by Trustee Hansen, seconded by Trustee Arredondo.
I have a question.
Okay.
Could Dr. Barton please Could you just, because there are people, we've had the opportunity to review this policy in the board book, but people who are watching might not understand why this is before the board and what it means and what, in a sentence or two, is the district strategy on this. If you could explain that, please.
If you had an opportunity to review CDA local, there are a lot of opportunities or a lot of strategies we could employ. We employ one. We use the governmental pools. And the reason we do that is it provides versatility and security to the district simultaneously. A lot of other strategies and investment provide one or the other, but throughout the investment policy, you'll see that security for our money, making sure that it's always making as much as possible, but also that it's accessible to the district at all times are the two highest priorities. And for SMCISD governmental pools is that strategy.
Thank you.
Ms. Villalpando?
I would like to thank Dr. Barton, because this information that you gave us was very thorough, and I appreciate that.
Agreed.
I think I've mentioned to him, I have never seen such a good presentation on the budget and the breakdown. I talked to him right before the break. Ready for the vote? All in favor? All opposed? 0. Items for action. Consider approval of purchasing cooperatives, interlocal purchasing agreements, and state contract list.
So this action item specifically deals how the district procures and purchases goods and services. It allows us to participate in cooperative purchasing programs. We currently do this. The list of the purchasing cooperatives are on the backside or the second page of this document. It really makes sure that we're in compliance with all procurement rules and policies. Specifically, Buy Board provides a rebate, and since I've taken over the purchasing role, I've made a big push to make sure that everything we purchase is through a co-op. Like I said, it just provides protection for the district, and now with having to track an aggregate spend, the reporting features with cooperatives allows us to do that. So it's our recommendation that these cooperatives be approved.
Doesn't this also help with partnering with hub vendors?
Hub?
Yes.
No,
No.
not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
No, not for Hub.
Okay.
Basically, what these co-ops have done is they've gone out to vendors and already issued RFPs, if you would. They've negotiated best price, and they've also have screened contracts, validated contracts, et cetera.
Thank you.
Ms. Villalpando, did you have your hand up?
I'm ready to move.
Yeah.
Oh.
You move it.
Any questions, anybody else?
Okay.
Okay, we're ready for the motion?
I'll move that the board approve the attached 2021-2022 cooperative purchasing agreements listing as presented.
I second.
Moved by Ms. Villalpando, seconded by Ms. Hanson. All in favor? 7-0. Consider approval of board meeting calendar for 2021-2022 school year. And looking at the calendar, I noticed that the agenda prep for July was left off, and I would like to add an agenda prep meeting for July. We've always had an agenda prep.
Not in July.
I think we've been not having it because of it closed.
We did have one last year, last year, because I have a copy of the email where Georgianne sent to us asking us to meet.
Was it for a special reason, though? Because I thought the year before we hadn't had one because it fell over the district, right, it fell over the district holiday of the 4th.
And that's another question I have for the superintendent. Is the district officially closed the 5th through the 9th?
Yes.
Okay, so then if
Officially,
we,
non-officially. We volunteer people, we're off that.
okay, so that if we wanted to have an agenda prep, it would be the following, the 12th, July 12th?
I'm fine to do it if you feel like we need to, or if the superintendent feels like we need to, but if we don't have something urgent and pressing that everybody feels like we need to do it, I'm also fine not having it, so.
As
Okay.
a
Also,
follow-up
we're
to
gonna
Ms.
have,
Ms. Villalpando?
I'm sorry, How else are we gonna know what's gonna be on the agenda for the July meeting?
As
I
a
mean,
fo-
this, we've gotten used to this agenda prep thing.
Mr. Arredondo?
As a follow-up, if we are not going to have a July agenda preparation meeting, do board policies and procedures still apply? So any item that we get to President Cantu by July 5th will be guaranteed to get on the July 19th meeting. I know theoretically, the idea behind an agenda preparation meeting is any item that is brought forward by any trustee will then be brought forward in front of the entire body, so everyone is made aware of it. For that subsequent meeting that's occurring after agenda preparation, either way, I'm fine with whatever the board decides to do, a majority. But I just want to acknowledge the fact that if we don't have an agenda preparation meeting, then we will all be seeing the full agenda when it's posted the Friday before. And if people are fine with that, cool. I just want to make sure that we're all aware
I
of that,
just want to hear from the
right?
rest of the board if y'all feel like it. I know that last year's it was a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, I just, again, we have it or not, then by July 5th, which would technically be when we would have agenda preparation meeting, any items submitted to President Cantu will get on that agenda, right?
I would like to know what the president thinks.
I would like to add it, and it can be the week before our regular meeting.
So Monday,
If our
July
meeting
12th?
is the 19th, it would be the Monday before.
It's the 18th.
So the 12th?
I'm sorry?
Says
Okay,
here
then
July
I'll-
18th.
If we're ready, then I'll make a motion that we approve the board meeting calendar as presented.
My problem,
With
though, so
the
just,
addition-
can I just say, sorry, I'm sorry, but if we have the meeting, I mean, this is one of the reasons we went away from having the meeting in July anyway. So if we have a meeting on July 12th, then that gives staff absolutely no time to prepare for that meeting because they're off the week before that. So I think we need to give them a little bit more flexibility and/or room to schedule that. Otherwise, they're going to have to prepare over their vacation, and I don't think that's fair.
Well, I would think they'd start working on the next agenda tomorrow. I mean, when we finish this meeting, it's time to work on the next one, right?
So then are we going to?
Don't y'all start working on it as soon as y'all finish
Are
with
you
this?
talking about
Necessarily,
the
no.
July 2021 or July 2022?
I'm talking for next month.
Okay.
'Cause-
I thought you were talking about July
No,
2022.
we can look at both of them, but I'm talking about next month on 2021. Are you talking 2021 or 2020?
I'm talking about next month. Given the year that we've been through it, I think asking staff to prepare an agenda while they're supposed to be, the 1 week that the district offices are closed is not fair. And so I think we need to accommodate for that somehow if we're going
We
to have
would
the
have to
meeting.
do June 28th.
So you don't, the board agrees that they don't need to look at the agenda before we have the board meeting, except for the Friday from,
Agenda by the second?
I
Can
would be
ask
fine
the
to have it
question?
emailed by the 2nd.
Can we get the agenda to them by the 2nd? Like email it to them? July 2nd?
I can send it, whatever we have, yeah.
That way if anybody has,
And then we
Okay,
would meet on
so-
the 9th, or we would just have
we'll
questions.
just give it to you.
you'll just send us the agenda to look at.
We just have to get it done here within the next week.
And any
Mignon.
questions would go back to Ms. Cantu or to you about that. I think I'm fine with that.
I'd like to hear from the rest of the board.
I'm fine, but I'd also like to address,
And we'll need to address the July 2022. That's what Ms. Hanson's bringing up. So you're saying you'll send us on July 2nd? Is
July
that the
2nd.
30 before y'all, is that the Thursday before you go off?
But board policies and procedures say that we can get any item on the agenda if it's submitted 10 days before it's posted. So we can get the agenda on the 2nd, that's good and great. But board policy says we can still submit agenda items that will be guaranteed to be put
July
on
1st, actually.
the agenda.
Or July 19th?
Yes, if we submit it 10 days prior. And that's the 5th. That's why it would be agenda preparation on that day to be in compliance with board procedures. But if the 2nd is what people
July
prefer.
1st. We can get it to y'all by July 1st. That gives y'all plenty of time.
What I'm saying though is that's,
Well,
again,
yeah,
I'm
because
fine
the
with
meetings-
either scenario. But theoretically, a board member could request from Mrs. Cantu an agenda item on the 5th, and so that agenda would not be what was sent out on the 2nd. So if we like acknowledge that the timelines don't jive in that way, then I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I would just say that then in that case, if some extenuating circumstances happened that was necessary, that Ms. Cantu would just then alert the board that there's an additional item or the items have changed. And I'm fine receiving that information via email and.
Okay, cool. All right, so no agenda prep for July of 21?
For next month.
Or,
For next month.
okay.
Okay. Now, Ms. Hanson wants to talk
I
about.
thought that's what we were talking about all along.
You're thinking 2022.
Right. And I think we can just wait. I mean, if one's needed, fine. At this point, I don't see the need for one. We can do it just the same way.
I agree.
Okay. You're okay? Mejia? You okay? Dr. Sami?
Yes. Can we clarify the agenda prep meetings on this schedule that are at noon are by Zoom? Is that correct?
Yep. Yes,
Thank you.
it's just, are all agenda preps at noon is what she's
Are
asking?
going to be virtual. Ms. Cantu,
Yes.
ready to make a
If
motion?
you're ready to make the motion, let's go with the motion then.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve the board meeting calendar as presented by staff, clarifying that all agenda preparation meetings will be conducted virtually by Zoom. And I'm including that we prohibit action items from being attached to agenda preparation meetings.
In other words.
So like
put 'em in
moving
advance.
forward, the only things that we're doing at agenda prep could be agenda prep and workshops. No items for action.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Well, we've had, when we've voted on things, right?
I
He's
see.
saying we're not going to vote on any
No,
item.
no, we can't, no, if we're going to
I agree.
vote on something, that needs to be a night meeting.
Yeah, but now,
Okay, I
like,
didn't-
we're
I thought you
enacting
we couldn't discuss action items. I was
No,
like,
Oh, no.
But like moving forward, if someone seconds my motion and it passes, then the board has essentially created a prohibition on attaching action items to vote on at agenda preparation.
Right.
There shouldn't be any emergency.
Well, we'd have a special called meeting or something to have the vote, and it would be in the evening, and
It has to be, it has
Well,
to
we
be in the
haven't done
evening.
that always, so yes, I think that's important that we have it in the meeting so that people can come and speak in person or, they need to see the vote.
Mhm.
And it's not as easy on Zoom.
It's always been difficult for people to show up to do the public forum during the Zoom meetings.
Okay, so,
Okay, so
I'll
we have a
second that.
motion from
I'll
Mr.
second it.
Arredondo. You want to repeat your motion,
yeah,
please?
so I move that we approve the board meeting calendar as presented by staff, clarifying that agenda preparation meetings are happening virtual via Zoom, and enacting a prohibition on action items being included on agenda preparation meeting agendas. And I'll send that language to Trustee Mejia and Ms. Logue.
I will second that. I also would just make, it's not a motion, it's not an amendment, it's just a suggestion that there's a big gap between the March 7th meeting and the April 4th meeting. The March 7th is the regular scheduled board meeting, which is scheduled before spring break, and then the April actual meeting won't happen until the 18th. So I think we should be thinking long-term planning that we would have a budget workshop in that interval. There will be several weeks there. And then we'll be right at the midst of budget planning, so that's my second.
In the past, we did March after spring break. Our March meetings were after spring break.
I think they have been, but, and I'm fine with moving it to before spring break. I'm just saying I think that we should make use of that time because we'll certainly have things to address.
Now, I have a question. So for August 2nd, the agenda prep meeting, it's at 6. It is my understanding that our agenda prep meetings are during lunchtime at noon. So is there a reason why it's scheduled for 6?
Yes.
Yes.
We have a planned workshop that evening.
Okay.
Any other questions? So we have a Motion from Mr. Arredondo and a second from Ms. Halsey. Did you second, Ms. Halsey?
I did.
We're ready for the vote. All in favor? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7, 0 opposed. Consideration and approval of changes to the 2021-2022 academic school year calendar.
Could somebody point out the changes?
Yes, ma'am. So good evening, board. There's just a few minor changes, and really it's geared around graduation. We want to get graduation right. We have to deal with the weather. As nice of a ceremony that it was prior to the rain, we're going to move back to Strahan. But we had to make a few adjustments to the academic calendar prior to that. So if you look at January 4th, we'll change that from a professional development to a regular school day. The second change, the last day of school will go from May 27th, that Friday, to Thursday, May 26th. So we don't lose a school day because we gained it through that professional development change to a school day. Graduation will take place on Friday, May 27th. So the reason why is so our staff here at the high school can be available in the morning. The plan is to have a morning graduation to let more families come in, have staff available during graduation on May 27th at Strahan. And then it gives them the afternoon to go to lunch and dinner, if not everyone going all at once. May 27th moves to a professional development day for the rest of staff. And then the last day for staff remains May 31st. So the first and last day for staff doesn't change. The last day of school for students goes from May 27th, Friday, to Thursday, May 26th. And those are the changes.
Thank you.
Ms. Cantu?
Yes.
So I just have that sounds great to me, I'm fine with it, but in terms of moving to a morning graduation, if we're going to make that decision, could we first survey parents and of seniors to make sure? That's a work time that people will have to take off, and I'm nervous about that.
Is Strahan not available in the evening?
No, we have that whole day scheduled.
So it could be in the afternoon or evening.
Yes, ma'am.
Y'all were just suggesting it'd be in the morning because of less traffic? or
Maybe
what?
just survey senior parents and see what
Yes.
works best for them.
Sounds good.
I'd hate for people to lose work and time and pay.
Just because we have ample time that before we have to make the final call on when that is, I would really think it would be great if we could make that outreach, so.
Sounds good. I'll work with the high school on that.
Is there a reason behind why y'all are wanting to do a morning commencement all of a sudden?
Sorry.
That,
I don't want to say the wrong
it's a
reason.
year out, so. But I think it's also Memorial Day weekend that Monday, so
Oh, okay.
Well, I was just
think
wanting to
we're
make sure
trying to
Strahan was available.
get people out.
Split all the, okay, I understand, I just,
Right.
then I would like, because I've already been asked when graduation is. Honestly, somebody has already reached out to me and asked me when is graduation for next year.
Yes.
And so if that is the plan, I understand that reason. I hope that we can start broadcasting that now and frequently with all of that communication about why, so that we're giving people time to make
Yes,
whatever.
my plan is to send this calendar update out tomorrow morning, and then including the graduation date as well.
In time?
Date and time, yes, ma'am.
You can set a monthly reminder too.
I'll send daily, weekly, monthly, whatever we need.
But ensuring that families know that it's to reduce traffic and to accommodate people who might be coming in from out of town, and also to, try to avoid the holiday weekend
Correct.
issues, and to have it indoors so that we can be outside of the extenuating weather circumstances, all of that. I would love to see that in that communication.
And just to make it known public, Strahan was not available this prior school year.
Oh, I understood that. I know. I thought graduation was fantastic. I think everybody involved did the best job possible.
In spite of everything.
I thought it was terrific.
No, huge shout out to the high school administration team. They've thought of
Oh, yeah.
every scenario, so
Absolutely.
really shout out to Ms. Presley and her team.
Good job.
And
Good
Ms.
job.
Lacey, our assistant principal, I got to give her a special shout out as well.
Yes. All of y'all.
In spite of the public comment, I was very happy with our with our graduation, even if we got wet. Didn't matter. I didn't mind being.
They won't forget their graduation day, I'll tell you that. I forgot
That's
mine.
for sure.
I did get wet, and it didn't matter.
I loved it.
I loved it.
It's one to remember.
Our kids will be talking about it for years to come. Are we ready for a motion?
I move.
Ms. Hanson?
Second.
Ms. Hanson makes the motion. Ms. Villalpando seconds. All in favor, please. Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Opposed, 0. And now the budget.
Yes, ma'am. On page 41 of your board book, you have the proposed budget for the 2021-2022 school year. We met in 2 budget workshops with additional discussion and action at regularly scheduled board meetings to come up with this budget. It reflects the board's commitment of a 3% pay increase to professional employees and a $15 minimum wage. In addition, the board has made a commitment of $41 a month to every employee who takes our insurance. And so that is that's basically the major shifts in this budget this year.
Ms. Cantu.
Mr. Arredondo?
Thank you. I make a motion to approve the budget as presented by staff.
Motion by Mr. Arredondo, second by Ms. Villalpando.
I have questions too.
And we have questions.
My first question is on the substitute compensation plan, which for my colleagues on the board is page 50 of our board book. The calculations for this, what is the number of hours a substitute works a day? 7.5. So at 7.5, is it $15 an hour for 105? Like at $105 per day divided by 7 hours is 15. So they're making a little bit above $15 an hour per time. Okay. So just to clarify, through every position that we have, part-time, temporary employee, grant funded, not grant funded, every ISD employee, regardless of classification, is at least making $15 an hour, correct? Okay, thank you.
That doesn't, you said 7.5 hours for a substitute? 105 divided by 7.5 is 14. Non-certified, okay. I'm just clarifying.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Ms. Halsey?
I have 2 questions. So food services, can you explain the deficit that we'll be running on food services?
Ma'am, I'm sorry, but I did not hear that question
I'm sorry,
clearly.
the deficit that we're running in food services?
It's a projection based on meals, and right now that projection is pessimistic because of this past year. We're very hopeful that with students in the building, that we will have a surplus by the end of the year. But based on just pure math, the number of meals and the reimbursement for that, it's upside down right now. I will say, if you've been watching our budget amendments throughout the year, we've made a commitment of general fund money just to keep child nutrition head above water right now, and that's on salaries for the most part. They are at equilibrium right now. They are not underwater, but just on pure math, based on the number of meals we had this year, it's in the deficit $100,000.
Okay, then 2 other things. One, when we receive the ESSER funds, I would like to see the ESSER funds budget reporting as another column in this spread. Sorry, I'm still recovering from pneumonia, so I'm masking. But when we receive the ESSER funds, I would like to see the ESSER fund budget accounting as either an addendum to this sheet or another column in this sheet, so that we see that how that budget is working on a regular basis.
I think definitely we can produce something like this for you at the 6-month check-in. I think accountability is wonderful. I don't want to give you the impression this isn't official. We turn it into TEA budget. And so there won't be an ESSER column on what we turn it into.
Okay, that's fine. Okay,
But
that's
I
fine.
definitely think we can create a mechanism that does, I think, what you were asking for, and if not, you'll coach us on it.
Okay, and then my third question is, with the debt services fund, you explained at the beginning of the meeting that you anticipate that the surplus there will decrease. Do you have a guesstimate on what you think it will become in the actual?
No, ma'am, I'm not going to guesstimate that right now. I can tell you that surplus that you see in the budget for next year is what we're backing out of the budget in the budget amendments for this year. So we've made a budget projection on revenue based on our current tax rate. and it's going to fall when we actually get our actual tax rate. But no, I don't have the actual
Okay.
projection for
Thank you.
today.
Anybody
That's
else?
August.
Ms. Hanson?
I don't have a question. I just can't vote for this budget because of the $3.264 million deficit. It's going to take our fund balance down into the 30s, and I just can't support that.
Okay, we ready for the vote? Oh, Ms. Villapando?
Again, I'd like to say how pleased I am with the amount of detail. Thank you, both of you. Well, whoever, I don't know how many it took, but it's a lot of detail, and I know that you get the questions from the dais, so I don't see how anybody else would have any questions, because it's all here. Thank you.
And
Appreciate it.
I've already said it, and I'll say it a third time. I commend you on the information you've sent us. I feel fully informed, and I see how the budget spreads out. Doesn't leave much for question.
I'll draw your attention, because this is point of privilege, but Director of Finance, Denise Garcia in the back, does not look for the spotlight, and she doesn't like to stand up here, but she is absolutely the
Thank
best
you.
around.
I know.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. Good job.
Thank you.
We'll call for the vote. All in favor of the budget? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed? 1. Consider approval of budget amendments.
Ms. Cantu, we bring you several budget amendments this evening. This is closing out the budget year, so we always have several in June. I'll go one by one if that is helpful. The first one is accounting for the Medicare Part D. It is revenue neutral, just the additional money that we brought in, we're showing it as revenue and then showing the functions in which it was spent. That's Amendment 18. In Amendment 19, we had a bus accident and we've received insurance payment and we're transferring that into an expenditure account, and we're going to have a replacement vehicle here before the end of the budget year. In Amendment 20, we are recognizing our commodities in the child nutrition account, and again, that's revenue neutral. Amendment 21, again, we talked about debt service. We made a budget based on a tax rate before it was set, a projected tax rate, and then it lowers, and we know that's going to happen. So there's a surplus there. We didn't collect that much money. You can see the surplus in our budget. We could amend that the next month, or we can wait till the end of the budget year, because we're going to do one anyways to bring that budget revenue into alignment with the actuals. So that's what we're doing here, is we're backing out a projected revenue of $1.5 million. Budget Amendment 22 is the bond refunding that you approved in the spring. That's been completed, and we're just accounting for that. And then Budget 23 is moving money so that we don't overspend in any single function. It is a fatal error to overspend in a function, so you accumulate all your projected expenditures through the end of this month, and then you move more than enough money into every single function. It all gets swept up in the end, right back to the same place, but it's to make sure that we don't make a mistake.
I move that we approve the budget amendments as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Ms. Hanson moves that we accept the budget amendments as presented. Ms. Villapando seconds the motion. Any further question or discussion? All in favor? 7, 0 opposed.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Hanson and seconded by Arredondo? Is it Arredondo? That we adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Raise your hands. 7, 0. Thank y'all. Good job.